Oh my gosh, trenches in a sedan?
Let's see if we have the clearance. I would never take any car down here normally. We didn't even run out of clearance. That's the other cool thing about these older sedans, is they were designed for roads that people actually drive on and not designed to look cool.
They say beauty fades, but reliability? That lasts a lifetime. In a world obsessed with sleek designs, glowing headlights, and oversized touchscreens, there's a group of cars that couldn't care less about looking good. They're not the kind you'd proudly show off at a car meet or post on Instagram. In fact, most of them look downright boring, even ugly. But here's the twist. While stylish models break down, these ugly ducklings keep on running, year after year, mile after mile. Their engines outlast trends, their transmissions shrug off decades, and their owners quietly smile every time they pass another broken-down luxury car on the shoulder. Today, we're counting down 10 cars that look like crap, but run forever. The unkillable machines that prove true beauty lies under the hood. Let's start with a car that's been called boring for decades, yet it just won't die. The Toyota Corolla. Number 10. Toyota Corolla, 1998 to 2008. If there's one car that defines the phrase boring but bulletproof, it's the Toyota Corolla from the late 90s and early 2000s. There's nothing glamorous about it. No fancy curves, no aggressive stance, and certainly no luxury appeal. Most people who bought these cars didn't do it to turn heads. They just wanted something that worked, and the Corolla delivered exactly that. Underneath that plain sheet metal lies Toyota's legendary 1.8-liter four-cylinder engine, known internally as the 1ZZFE. It's one of those rare engines that seems almost allergic to failure. Change the oil on time, and it will easily cross 300,000 miles. It doesn't rely on turbochargers or complex electronics, just simple, over-engineered reliability. Mechanics love these cars because they're incredibly easy to work on. The parts are cheap, the design is straightforward, and even major repairs won't break the bank. Owners often joke that the car will outlast them, and they might not be wrong. There are stories of Corollas being passed down through generations, still running with their original engines. The interior wasn't much to brag about either. Simple cloth seats, plastic dashboard, and the kind of radio that looked old even when it was new. But that minimalism had a purpose. Fewer gadgets meant fewer things to break. The suspension was soft and forgiving, built for comfort, not performance. And because it was light and efficient, it delivered excellent fuel economy even by today's standards. In an era when most cars are packed with tech that goes obsolete faster than a smartphone, the Corolla stands as a reminder that sometimes less really is more. It may not win any beauty awards, but it's the kind of car that gets up every morning, starts without hesitation, and just works. Up next, another unassuming survivor that's been called boring for decades but continues to dominate the road. Number 9. Honda Civic, 1996 to 2005. The late 90s and early 2000s Honda Civic was the car everyone overlooked until they realized it just wouldn't quit. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't luxurious, and it certainly wasn't fast. The styling was plain, the materials were basic, and the design looked more like an appliance than a car. But that was exactly the point. The Civic wasn't built to impress, it was built to last. Pop open the hood, and you'll find Honda's legendary D-Series and early K-Series engines. Small, efficient, and nearly indestructible. These engines didn't have the brute force of modern turbos, but they had something far more valuable: endurance. With regular oil changes, it's not uncommon to see Civics from this era crossing 300,000 or even 400,000 miles. Mechanics love them for their simplicity. Timing belts are easy to replace, parts are inexpensive, and the engines are known for handling neglect better than most. Even when owners forgot basic maintenance, these Civics somehow kept running. You could run one low on oil, push it past its limits, and it would still limp home, begging only for a quart of oil and forgiveness. That's the kind of toughness you don't see in modern cars anymore. The design, though, was nothing to write home about. The exterior looked plain, and the interior was a sea of gray plastic with manual knobs and switches. But that simplicity meant fewer electronics to fail and fewer repair bills. It was built during a time when Honda engineers focused more on durability than digital displays. Another thing that made this Civic special was its transmission. The 5-speed manual was crisp and nearly bulletproof, while the automatic was simple and reliable. It wasn't uncommon for taxi drivers, delivery workers, and students to rack up hundreds of thousands of miles without a single major failure. And because the car was light and efficient, it delivered excellent gas mileage long before hybrids took over the streets. Many of these Civics from the early 2000s are still running today, quietly outliving cars that cost 3 times as much. They might look outdated, but their reliability is timeless. In a world full of complicated engines and fragile tech, the old Civic proves that true beauty lies in simplicity and reliability. Number 8. Subaru Outback, 2000 to 2010. The Subaru Outback has always been the car for people who value function over form, and nowhere is that truer than in the early 2000s models. With its boxy silhouette, oversized fenders, and wagon body that looked like something out of a 1980s survival movie. The Outback was never meant to win style awards. But while it may have looked awkward parked next to sleeker SUVs, it could go places most of them couldn't dream of. This was the era when Subaru cemented its reputation for all-weather durability. Every Outback came standard with symmetrical all-wheel drive, a system so balanced and dependable that it became a lifeline in snow-covered states like Vermont, Colorado, and Alaska. Paired with Subaru's iconic flat-4 Boxer engine, the Outback was perfectly balanced, rugged, and ready for anything from muddy trails to icy roads. That Boxer engine, though not the prettiest to look at under the hood, was a masterpiece of engineering simplicity. With proper maintenance, these engines routinely cross the 250,000-mile mark, and many have hit 300,000 with minimal drama. The power output was modest, but the torque delivery was smooth, making it ideal for towing small trailers, hauling camping gear, or climbing mountain roads. Yes, it had its quirks. The head gasket issue on some models became infamous, but owners who fixed it once usually never had to worry again. After that, the Outback just kept going. Its simplicity meant parts were easy to find, and Subaru's reputation for long-term dependability only grew stronger with time. Inside, it wasn't luxurious. Far from it. The cabin looked like it was designed with a ruler. Simple lines, hard plastics, and cloth seats that could survive anything short of a wildfire. But that was exactly what owners wanted. You could spill coffee, drag muddy boots across the floor, and the car would still look fine, because, well, it never looked great to begin with. The Outback became more than just a car. It was a companion for the long haul. Families took them on cross-country road trips, adventurers drove them deep into national parks, and retirees loved them for their comfort and dependability. It was the car you bought once and kept for decades. It may look like a lifted wagon with a bad attitude, but it's one of the toughest survivors on the road. Number 7. Toyota Camry, 2002 to 2011. If there's ever been a car that defines the phrase boring but brilliant, it's the Toyota Camry. For decades, the Camry has been the go-to choice for people who don't care about flash. They just want something that works every single time. The 2002 to 2011 generation, in particular, may have looked painfully plain, but underneath that uninspired exterior sat one of the most dependable powertrains ever built. From the outside, it looked like a car designed by someone who fell asleep halfway through the sketch. The shape was generic, the headlights were unremarkable, and the interior was a mix of beige, gray, and more beige. But that's exactly what made it timeless. While other cars from the early 2000s look dated now, a Camry just looks like a Camry, the same simple, functional design that never tried too hard. Under the hood, Toyota offered the bulletproof 2.4-liter four-cylinder engine, known for its silky smooth operation and remarkable durability. With regular maintenance, these engines easily ran 300,000 miles or more. For those who wanted more power, the available 3.0-liter and later 3.5-liter V6 options were equally reliable, delivering impressive performance without sacrificing longevity. Toyota didn't chase trends with turbochargers or fancy tech. It stuck with what worked. The transmission was another unsung hero. Whether automatic or manual, it shifted smoothly and rarely failed. Mechanics often say the Camry is the kind of car that only comes into the shop for oil changes and brake pads. Even the suspension setup, while soft and uninspiring to drive, was designed to absorb rough roads and last for years without major issues. Inside, everything was built with practicality in mind. The seats were comfortable, the layout was simple, and the controls were exactly where you expected them to be. Sure, it lacked the excitement of European sedans, but it made up for it with reliability and comfort. You could drive across the country and back, and the Camry wouldn't even flinch. There's a reason these cars are still common sights on American roads. They just refuse to die. Even with faded paint and a dent or two, they keep running, quietly proving that durability is the best design. Number 6. Volvo 240, 1975 to 1993. If there was ever a car that defined the word boxy, it's the Volvo 240. This thing looked more like a refrigerator on wheels than a piece of automotive art. Straight lines, sharp corners, flat panels. It was pure geometry. But beneath that squared-off design was one of the most durable and over-engineered cars ever built. The Volvo 240 didn't need to be pretty. It was built to last longer than almost anything else on the road. Produced from the mid-1970s all the way into the early 1990s, the 240 was the ultimate symbol of Swedish practicality. It was designed during a time when Volvo engineers focused on three things: safety, simplicity, and longevity. The result was a car that could survive harsh winters, brutal roads, and decades of daily driving without missing a beat. It wasn't fast, and it certainly wasn't stylish, but it was practically indestructible. Under the hood sat Volvo's legendary red block inline-4 engine. It was a low-stressed cast-iron power plant known for being nearly unkillable. Owners have reported driving these engines for 500,000 miles with little more than basic maintenance. The simplicity of the design meant fewer things to go wrong. No fancy electronics, no turbocharging, no unnecessary complexity. It just kept running. The transmission was built with the same philosophy, sturdy and simple. The manual gearboxes could take years of abuse, and the automatics were just as dependable. Even the body structure was overbuilt. Volvo poured so much steel into these cars that they became known for their safety long before crumple zones and airbags became standard. Inside, the 240 was pure functionality. The dashboard looked like it came out of an industrial machine, the seats were firm but supportive, and visibility was outstanding thanks to those tall windows. It didn't have digital screens or touch-sensitive buttons, just big, satisfying switches that clicked when you pressed them. Owners loved the car for one reason: trust. You could drive a Volvo 240 through a blizzard, over gravel roads, or across a continent, and it would just keep going. And if something did go wrong, parts were easy to find and repairs were straightforward. It's why so many of these boxy legends are still roaming the roads today, often proudly wearing faded paint and a million-mile odometer. The Volvo 240 may not turn heads, but it's turned time itself into its biggest fan. Number 5. Ford Crown Victoria, 1998 to 2011. The Ford Crown Victoria might just be the most recognizable ugly workhorse in America. For years, it served as the car of choice for police departments, taxi fleets, and government agencies across the country. With its boxy shape, bland styling, and basic interior, it looked like something that hadn't been redesigned since the early 90s. And in many ways, it hadn't. But that's exactly what made it great. While flashier sedans came and went, the Crown Vic kept doing its job, mile after mile, decade after decade. At the heart of this tank on wheels was Ford's legendary 4.6-liter V8 engine, part of the modular family. It wasn't particularly powerful or efficient, but it was unbreakable. With regular oil changes, these engines routinely passed the 400,000-mile mark, even under harsh police or taxi use. Mechanics loved them because the layout was simple, repairs were straightforward, and parts were cheap and everywhere. You could practically rebuild one of these cars with pieces from a junkyard and a socket wrench. The Crown Vic also used a body-on-frame construction, something almost no other sedan had at the time. That meant it could take hits, survive accidents, and even be repaired after damage that would total a unibody car. For fleets, that was a dream come true. Police departments could replace entire front or rear sections without scrapping the vehicle, keeping them on the road for years longer than expected. It rode like a cloud, too. The suspension was soft, the seats were wide, and it floated down the road like a living room sofa on wheels. Sure, the steering was vague and the handling was sluggish, but comfort and durability were the priorities here. For taxi drivers spending 12 hours a day behind the wheel, nothing could beat the Crown Vic's reliability and ease of maintenance. Even after Ford discontinued it in 2011, used Crown Vics continued to dominate city streets. Retired police interceptors were sold off in droves, and civilians quickly discovered what cops and cabbies already knew. These cars were built to outlast civilization. Many of them are still going strong today, often with faded paint, worn seats, and over 300,000 miles on the odometer. It might not be pretty, but the Crown Victoria is the definition of forever car. It's big, it's tough, and it refuses to die. Number 4. Toyota Hilux, any year. When it comes to vehicles that just won't die, the Toyota Hilux stands in a league of its own. Around the world, it's known as the truck that can survive almost anything: wars, floods, jungles, deserts, and neglect. The Hilux isn't about beauty or comfort. It's about getting the job done, no matter how rough the road or how terrible the conditions. It looks rugged, sometimes even crude, but that's exactly what makes it legendary. From the outside, the Hilux has always had a simple utilitarian design: straight lines, squared wheel arches, and a no-nonsense stance. It doesn't scream luxury or performance. It just quietly says, "I'll still be here when everything else breaks down." Farmers, construction workers, explorers, and even soldiers have relied on it for decades because it's built like a tank with the manners of a mule: slow, stubborn, and impossible to kill. Underneath that unassuming exterior sits one of Toyota's most durable drivetrains ever made. The engines, especially the 2.4-liter and 3.0-liter diesel variants, are known for their low-end torque and long life. They'll run on low-quality fuel, endure extreme heat or freezing temperatures, and still start up in the morning. With proper maintenance, Hilux engines routinely hit 500,000 miles. Even with no maintenance, they somehow keep going. Top Gear famously tried to destroy one. They dropped it from a building, drowned it in the ocean, set it on fire, and even left it on top of a demolished structure. Each time, with a few basic repairs, the Hilux roared back to life. That experiment sealed its reputation as the most indestructible truck ever built. The suspension is equally impressive: leaf springs and solid axles that can handle heavy loads and brutal terrain without complaint. The body might rust, the paint might fade, but the frame and mechanicals are nearly impossible to kill. It's why Hilux trucks are still running strong in remote parts of Africa, South America, and the Middle East, long after newer vehicles have turned to scrap. Inside, it's bare bones: hard plastics, simple gauges, and minimal electronics. But that's the point. The fewer gadgets, the fewer things that can go wrong. Everything about the Hilux was designed for survival, not style. If you ever need a vehicle to cross a desert, climb a mountain, or survive the apocalypse, forget fancy SUVs. The Toyota Hilux will be waiting for you, still idling, ready for another day's work. Number 3. Chevrolet Impala, 2000 to 2013. For over a decade, the Chevrolet Impala was one of the most common sights on American roads, and not because it was stylish. This full-size sedan wasn't built to impress anyone at a car show. It was built for fleets, families, and anyone who wanted a car that would run forever without breaking the bank. With its bland design, plastic-heavy interior, and conservative shape, the Impala looked more like an appliance than a car. But under that forgettable exterior was one of the most dependable drivetrains ever made. The heart of the Impala's long life lies in its 3.8-liter V6 engine, the famous GM 3800 Series 2. This engine earned a reputation among mechanics as nearly bulletproof. It wasn't flashy or high-revving, but it was simple, powerful, and tough. With basic maintenance, it could easily cross 300,000 miles. Some owners even bragged about hitting 400,000 without major repairs. It was the kind of motor that just didn't know how to quit. The transmission paired with it, the 4T65E automatic, was equally dependable when serviced regularly. It wasn't the fastest shifter, but it handled years of commuting, idling, and highway miles with ease. And because GM used this drivetrain across multiple vehicles, from Pontiacs to Buicks, replacement parts were cheap and easy to find anywhere in the country. The Impala's suspension was tuned for comfort rather than excitement. It soaked up bumps like a champ, making it a favorite among retirees and long-distance drivers. Sure, it wallowed through corners and the steering felt numb, but it delivered what buyers wanted: a quiet, smooth, low-maintenance cruiser. Inside, the Impala didn't even try to look premium. The dashboard was simple, the seats were wide, and the layout was pure functionality. Fleet versions were especially Spartan, but that simplicity became its biggest advantage. No complicated electronics, no digital displays to fail, just good old-fashioned knobs, gauges, and buttons that always worked. The Impala became the workhorse of America's highways, a car you could drive cross-country with nothing but an oil change and a tank of gas. Even after GM discontinued the model, thousands of these sedans kept running for years, serving as daily drivers, Uber cars, and even police vehicles. It might look like something your grandfather drove to church, but it earned its place in history as one of the most dependable sedans ever built. Number 2. Nissan Sentra, 2000 to 2012. The Nissan Sentra from the early 2000s was never a head-turner. It wasn't flashy, sporty, or particularly stylish. In fact, most people who bought one didn't do it out of passion. They just needed something affordable, fuel-efficient, and dependable. And while its exterior design was forgettable at best, its reliability was unforgettable. The Sentra became one of those cars that quietly racked up hundreds of thousands of miles without ever asking for attention. The Sentra's secret weapon was its simplicity. Under the hood sat a lineup of naturally aspirated four-cylinder engines, most notably the 1.8-liter QG18DE and the 2.0-liter MR20DE. These engines were built for endurance, not excitement. They weren't fast or fancy, but they could take abuse and neglect better than almost any other small car on the market. With proper maintenance, they routinely surpassed 250,000 to 300,000 miles, and even poorly maintained examples refused to die easily. What made the Sentra so tough was Nissan's approach to engineering during that era. The cars were overbuilt for their size class. The engines had timing chains instead of belts, reducing the need for major maintenance. The transmissions, especially the early 4-speed automatics and 5-speed manuals, were known for their durability. They weren't sophisticated, but they were tough as nails. Mechanics often called these Sentras the cockroaches of the road, not because they were ugly, but because they simply wouldn't go away. You could find them in college parking lots, small-town driveways, and even delivery fleets, still running after decades of use. And when they did break, parts were dirt cheap and easy to replace. The interior wasn't much to brag about either. Hard plastics, basic cloth seats, and bare-bones amenities were the standard. But that Spartan design worked in its favor. There was very little to fail. Air conditioning units, power windows, and even dashboard electronics tended to last far longer than you'd expect for a budget compact sedan. Fuel efficiency was another big win. The Sentra routinely delivered 30+ miles per gallon, making it a favorite among commuters and city drivers who just wanted a cheap, dependable ride that wouldn't drain their wallet. The Sentra may not have turned heads or inspired passion, but it earned something far more valuable: respect. It proved that a car doesn't need luxury or good looks to earn loyalty. It just needs to start every morning and get you home every night. Number 1. Honda Accord, 1998 to 2012. If there's one car that perfectly captures the spirit of ugly but unkillable, it's the Honda Accord from the late 90s to the early 2000s. These cars were everywhere: grocery store parking lots, suburban driveways, and high school parking lots. And while they were about as exciting to look at as a toaster, They earned one of the most legendary reputations for reliability in automotive history. The Accord wasn't designed to turn heads, it was designed to last longer than anything else in its class, and it did exactly that. Pop the hood, and you'll find one of Honda's finest achievements: the F23, K24, and J30 engines. Simple, naturally aspirated power plants that just refused to die. These engines didn't rely on complicated technology or fragile components. They ran on the same formula Honda had perfected: precision engineering, tight tolerances, and just the right mix of performance and economy. It's not unusual to find Accords from this era still running perfectly with over 400,000 miles on the odometer. Mechanics love them because they're predictable. The engines are accessible. The transmissions, both manual and automatic, are long-lasting, and the maintenance is easy. Even when owners ignored them, these cars had a way of forgiving neglect. Blow a head gasket? Fix it once, and it'll run another decade. Forget oil changes for a bit? The motor will likely survive. The Accord doesn't quit easily. The exterior design was conservative, bordering on dull. Rounded edges, soft lines, and generic taillights made it blend into every neighborhood. Nobody ever stopped to compliment a 2004 Accord. But that's exactly why they aged so gracefully. They didn't chase trends or wild styling. They just existed, quietly and confidently, like a dependable old friend. Inside, everything was built to function and last. The cabin was spacious, the seats were supportive, and the controls were laid out logically. No gimmicks, no unnecessary electronics. Even today, many of these Accords have fully functional dashboards and power accessories, while newer cars suffer from failing touchscreens and glitchy sensors. Owners often say the same thing: "It's not exciting, but it's never let me down." That's the essence of the Honda Accord. It's the car that just works, every day, every season, every year. You can abuse it, ignore it, or drive it across the country, and it'll still fire up the next morning, ready to go again. The Honda Accord may not win beauty contests, but when it comes to longevity, it's the undisputed champion. And there you have it. 10 cars that might look like they belong in a junkyard beauty pageant, but underneath their dull exteriors lie hearts of pure steel. These are the machines that outlasted trends, fads, and even their own manufacturers' design philosophies. They remind us that reliability doesn't need flash. It needs craftsmanship, simplicity, and a little humility. While most modern vehicles drown in technology and overcomplication, these cars thrived on what truly matters: strong engines, simple parts, and build quality that refused to die. They weren't meant to impress. They were meant to endure. So the next time you see an old Corolla, Camry, or Accord cruising down the road, don't laugh. Admire it. Because odds are that ugly car will still be running long after the shiny new models have disappeared. True beauty fades, but real reliability, that runs forever.